You are looking at the ghostly remains of what used to be Miami, Florida. The year is 12,000 AD, and 10,000 years have passed since the moment humanity crossed every critical threshold, ignored every final warning, and blindly continued down the destructive path it had chosen. The temperature of the Earth's surface has risen by an average of 4.7 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial levels. The massive ice sheets of Greenland and West Antarctica have completely and irreversibly collapsed. Did you know that global sea levels have risen by over 20 meters, completely drowning the world's most populated coastlines? The world that emerged from that terrifying climatic transformation is almost completely unrecognizable to anyone from the 21st century. This is not science fiction. Every single data point you will hear in this archive is carefully extrapolated from peer-reviewed climate science, ancient geological records, and long-term projections. We are not simply imagining a disaster. We are following the cold, hard data to its ultimate logical conclusion. Because here is the dark truth that most ancient climate records never fully explain to the public. Life actually continues. Not for everyone, not everywhere, and certainly not without devastating, irreversible loss. But the story of the Earth in the year 12,000 is a brutal story of transformation. When people from the past heard about 4.7 degrees of warming, they often shrugged, thinking it was just a mild fever or a slightly warm afternoon. It was absolutely neither of those things. To truly comprehend what 4.7 degrees of average global warming actually means, you must consider the deep geological history of our planet. Did you know that the temperature difference between the last ice age, when massive glaciers crushed North America, and the pre-industrial world was only about 4 degrees? That tiny margin is the entire difference between a world buried under miles of dead ice and the fertile world where human civilization originally thrived. We are talking about a violent climate shift of equal, world-shattering magnitude, but moving aggressively in the opposite, boiling direction. And this catastrophic shift occurred not over tens of thousands of natural years, but over a few reckless centuries. The devastating consequences began to cascade in ways that the human mind was simply not equipped to fully comprehend. The tropics, the lush equatorial band that once supported the densest human populations and the most biodiverse ecosystems on Earth, became entirely and lethally hot. Wet bulb temperatures regularly exceeded the absolute biological threshold, meaning a healthy adult left outside would literally cook to death within hours. The Great Migration reshaped the entire demographic map. 20 meters of catastrophic sea level rise. Let that massive, terrifying number truly settle into your mind. 20 meters is the height of a massive 6-story building, and it is the exact amount by which global sea levels rose after the Greenland and West Antarctic ice sheets fully melted into the oceans. At 20 meters of sea level rise, the entire coastline of Bangladesh, once home to over 160 million people, was permanently erased from the map. The eastern seaboard of the United States was radically and violently transformed, with New York City's financial district completely buried under the dark, crushing waves of the Atlantic. Did you know that the entire state of Florida, which was essentially a flat limestone peninsula, completely ceased to exist as land? In Europe, the Netherlands, a country that spent centuries desperately engineering massive seawalls to exist below sea level, was finally and fully reclaimed by the unforgiving North Sea. The Great Thames Barrier of London completely failed, forcing the ancient city to retreat northward into the hills. In Asia, the highly productive Mekong Delta was entirely submerged, alongside massive metropolises like Shanghai, Bangkok, and Mumbai. But as the old world drowned, the geopolitical center of human civilization was forced to dramatically and permanently shift toward the newly thawed, arable lands of the far north. Not everywhere adapted to the boiling world, and certainly not everyone survived the Great Transition. The regions that bore the absolute heaviest cost of the changing climate were, tragically and almost without exception, the regions least responsible for actually causing it. By the year 12,000, massive swaths of what was once the vibrant, inhabited tropics have become what we now call the global dead zones. This terrifying term describes vast, silent continents where permanent human habitation has become effectively impossible due to lethal, boiling heat and complete ecological collapse. Did you know that these zones are not completely empty, but are instead filled with the haunting, rotting ruins of humanity's greatest tropical cities? The cracked, melted highways of Central America are still there, heavily buckled by extreme thermal expansion and violently torn apart by aggressive, fast-growing jungle root systems. The massive concrete towers of once thriving megacities like Lagos, Karachi, and Dhaka still stand in eerie silence as dark monuments to an era of extraordinary human ambition. They are slowly being consumed by aggressive vegetation, highly corrosive salt air, and the relentless, grinding passage of deep time. These are not simply ghost towns, they are entirely abandoned ghost continents. The desperate question of where billions of people fled is the defining story of our dark history. Despite the overwhelming scale of the global catastrophe, human beings proved to be, above all else, ruthlessly adaptable. People desperately moved, they violently conquered new lands, and they eventually found ways to survive in the extreme latitudes. Did you know that the great northward migration transformed the frozen, barren Arctic regions into the most densely populated and technologically advanced centers of the new Earth? By the year 12,000, the thriving capitals of human civilization are located in places that were once considered frozen, uninhabitable wastelands. Northern Canada, Siberia, and a completely ice-free Greenland now boast massive, deeply inhabited, and heavily fortified green coastlines. Meanwhile, in the southern hemisphere, the absolute southern tip of South America, known as Patagonia, became one of the most crucial and desperate refugee strongholds on the entire planet. Its unique geography and access to fresh glacial water made it a highly viable habitat on an otherwise boiling, hostile world. However, these new, highly concentrated civilizations do not look anything like the sprawling, wasteful nations of the past. They are built around extreme water management, massive vertical subterranean agriculture, and decentralized energy systems. Humanity survived the bottleneck, but the psychological scars of the Great Collapse forever changed the way we build our cities and our societies. Here is a crucial fact, that the ancient disaster narratives often completely misunderstood about planetary ecology. When human beings are violently forced to abandon a region, nature absolutely does not leave with them. The boiling dead zones of the tropics are not barren, empty wastelands. They are actually overflowing with a chaotic, hyper-aggressive, and entirely unrecognizable form of biological life. Did you know that the mighty Amazon rainforest, after suffering a devastating dieback and turning into a dry savanna, violently reorganized itself into a completely new, hostile ecosystem? It was populated by highly mutated species shaped by 10,000 years of extreme rapid evolutionary pressure and lethal heat. In the oceans, the story was vastly more painful, as massive acidification caused the complete and irreversible collapse of the world's original coral reef systems. The Great Barrier Reef, as it existed in the early 21st century, was entirely erased from existence. But nature is relentless, and new, highly acidic-tolerant marginal coral species eventually expanded to build strange, dark new reef structures. Tragically, the planet's original megafauna, including elephants, tigers, and polar bears, were completely wiped out during the terrifying sixth mass extinction. But evolution does not mourn the dead. It simply moves on, creating large, terrifying new creatures to fill the empty, silent void. One of the most important and deeply humbling scientific facts about carbon dioxide is its terrifying geological persistence. When carbon was recklessly released into the atmosphere by burning ancient fossil fuels, It did not simply dissipate or vanish over a few decades. The atmospheric lifetime of carbon dioxide is heavily measured in millennia, meaning the toxic legacy of the Industrial Revolution violently choked the planet for 10,000 years. Did you know that even after humanity completely stopped all emissions, the planet continued to aggressively warm for centuries due to the massive thermal lag of the boiling oceans? By the year 12,000, the Earth's deeply scarred atmosphere is finally, painfully beginning to heal itself. The carbon concentration, which peaked at catastrophic levels during the darkest centuries of the global collapse, has slowly declined as the remaining oceans and new northern forests absorb the toxic excess. The ice sheets are the most dramatic and highly visible indicator of this agonizingly slow recovery process. Greenland lost the vast majority of its ancient ice, but now, at the absolute highest altitudes, new, pristine glaciation is almost imperceptibly beginning to form once again. The planet's deep geological thermostat is finally resetting itself. The Earth never actually needed saving because the planet was always going to survive. It was only humanity that was pushed to the absolute brink. 10,000 years is an unimaginably long stretch of time for any biological species to endure. In the 10 millennia before the Great Collapse, human beings went from living in tiny hunter-gatherer tribes to building the ancient pyramids, splitting the atom, and walking on the surface of the moon. But after the devastating climate shift, what actually remains of the arrogant, hyper-connected world of the 21st century? Did you know that the physical, polluting legacy of that era is surprisingly and terrifyingly durable in the deep geological record? Massive highway systems, crushed concrete megalopolises, and deeply buried nuclear waste will leave highly visible, unnatural scars in the Earth's crust for millions of years. Future stratigraphers will easily identify our exact era by a highly toxic, razor-thin layer of non-biodegradable microplastics, carbon ash, and dangerous radioactive isotopes from ancient weapons testing. But the human legacy of culture, digital memory, and accumulated knowledge faced a much darker and more complete erasure. The great digital libraries, cloud servers, and vast data centers completely degraded and rotted away within mere decades without continuous electrical power. The entirety of the ancient internet was permanently lost, proving that our highly advanced digital society was vastly more vulnerable than the heavy carved stone tablets of ancient Mesopotamia. We have journeyed across a broken world completely transformed by 10,000 years of brutal, unforgiving climatic consequence. We have witnessed towering ancient civilizations collapse into dust and new, highly defensive societies emerge in the frozen extreme north. And now, looking back at the crushed ruins of Miami and the drowned coasts of the old world, we must ask the ultimate, haunting question. Was this terrifying apocalypse actually an inevitable outcome of human existence? The scientific consensus from the ancient archives is perfectly, devastatingly clear. The boiling oceans, the massive sea level rise, and the complete ecological collapse were not natural disasters. They were the direct results of specific, greedy choices made in a tiny window of time. Did you know that the critical, catastrophic decisions that locked Earth into its darkest trajectory were made entirely within a single, reckless century when the consequences were already fully understood? This distinction is absolutely essential to understanding the psychological burden carried by the survivors in the year 12,000. The new civilizations of the far north maintain strict, almost religious physical records and deep cultural memories of exactly what was lost and exactly who destroyed it. They know the horrific cost of arrogance, and their entire society is violently engineered to ensure they never repeat the deadly mistakes of their ancestors. The Earth is roughly 4.5 billion years old, and it has successfully survived 5 catastrophic mass extinction events. It has been violently struck by massive asteroids, frozen completely solid from pole to pole, and choked by oceans of acid and atmospheres of highly toxic methane. Did you know that every single time Over millions of brutal years, complex biological life stubbornly found a way to crawl back from the absolute brink of total annihilation. What we call the Great Climate Crisis was, on a vast geological timescale, nothing more than a brief, violent convulsion in the incredibly long story of a living planet. The planet's story did not end, but billions of individual human stories were violently, tragically cut short during the centuries of the Great Boiling. Entire lineages ended, and ecosystems of staggering ancient complexity vanished completely in a matter of decades. Those profound losses are not just abstract geological data points. They were real, terrifying, and they carry the weight of unimaginable tragedy. If the 10,000-year view from space teaches us anything, it is that the deep future is never truly written until the final moment. The brutal, drowned world of the year 12,000 is a terrifying possibility, but the power to change that trajectory always remained in the hands of those who lived before the Great Silence. The Shadows Archive will continue to document the future, waiting patiently in the dark.